Good evening, everybody. This is Tony Lynch, the host of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. And I want to welcome you guys to another episode. And again, we have another amazing guest, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about him. And if it's your first time tuning in, do me a favor. Go to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. Also, leave us a question, leave us a comment, ask questions during the interview and everything. And yeah, without further ado, let's see. My guest at the age of 14, Devin Moore became the founder of Race to Speak Up, an anti-bullying organization where he educates youth about bullying prevention and empowers them to be upstanders. Devin is a first-time author of the Devin Speaks Up, children's anti-bullying book. Devin Speaks Up is about the importance of being okay with being different and loving who you are. Speaking up to someone you trust about being bullied, kindness matters, and encourages kids to be upstanders for each other. Devin is a psychology major and nonprofit leadership minor at the University of Maryland. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my next guest. Hi, Devin. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes. So before we get started, tell people who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Devin Moore. I'm 19 years old. I'm from Long Island, New York. And then also, well, as Tony already said, but I am a University of Maryland sophomore studying psychology, minoring in nonprofit leadership. And beyond that, my anti-bullying work heavily lies in the fact that I am the founder of Race to Speak Up, which is an anti-bullying organization. With Race to Speak Up, we offer Race to Speak Up Against Bullying workshops to really educate students about the importance of bullying prevention and empowering them to be upstanders. And beyond that, I am also the author of Devin Speaks Up, a children's anti-bullying book that allows for students to really get more of an understanding of what bullying can look like, as well as being upstanders, kindness matters, and embracing our beautiful differences.
I love that. Now, I have to ask, how did you get in this sort of work?
So the story is not really a good story. When I was 14 years old, I went through a lot of bullying. It was racist bullying. And then, of course, at that, it was verbal, it was in person, and they also cyberbullied me. So there was a lot of negativity going on. And through that, I knew that I wanted to help others because I also saw that bullying was not only in that environment, it was happening all over, unfortunately. All over this world is what I mean, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to do something that puts an end to that, or at least lessen, at the bare minimum, lessens the amount of bullying that happens in schools and really overall. And so I decided that my 14-year-old self decided that I wanted to create a space that allows for me to speak, a platform that allows for me to talk about anti-bullying. And then I became an entrepreneur by starting or founding my own organization. And then I've gone from there. Now I'm 19 years old and have a lot of different titles under my belt and
Mhm.
continuously give these workshops or presentations or speaking at different environments, whether it be schools, libraries, where like I've spoken at corporate companies. I continue to speak at corporate companies as well. Um, just kind of overall a lot of different areas because I know how important it is. Like I'm very on top of and very and passionate about speaking about this important issue and creating
Yeah.
effective call to actions about it too.
Yeah, I work with a lot of youth, and they say the same thing. In school, things like that. Especially when you got the little people, little guys out there, wanting to play, and you got the big guys playing around. And I don't know what happened. I think it's just a generational thing. But I see a lot of the mistreatment of the little guys running around. The young ladies, being pushed down and talked down to, and things like that. Um, and in my opinion, that has a lot to do with home. Like what's going on at home that's making these kids, go out here and want to act out in a way to where is hurting other children and things like that. And and I think you're the perfect person to ask that.
Yeah, so oftentimes it is true that it does start in the home environment. Well, what is true exactly about that is this negative or this hateful mentality teaching your child or the young person in that home environment this negative behavior, this hateful mentality towards certain groups, certain racial groups, certain groups of different
Mm,
sexualities, genders, religions, different minority groups, as well as just honestly social groups in general that is outside of that family's norm. Oftentimes, it's taught how to hate other groups. And that mentality, that knowledge is put into the child. So then they take that knowledge and then they go back into the school environment or some other environment that they're mainly in, and they start to hurt others. They start to exhibit that bullying behavior onto others because it's being taught. Oftentimes you're not really born hating on other people. These are the types of
right.
things that you do need to learn. And so because of that, it's continued to be hurt, like it continues to cause this uh cycle of hating others. And then on top of that, if it's the person exhibiting the bullying behavior, there are times where they may have been bullied themselves, and it can turn into a
Right.
hurt people type of thing, where they're
Mm,
hurt, and now you know what my trauma response is to hurt other people so that I feel better about myself. It could be dealing with jealousy, insecurity. There's so many different aspects to it, but those are the main types of things that lead to others hating on others.
right. And you took the words right out of my mouth because when you were saying it, it was like, I started thinking hurt people, and me being 49 now, I've come from a different generation, and to grow up and watch my children having to go through there, and then like having access to the internet, like you mentioned before, cyberbullying, right? Um, when do you think? Well, in your opinion, when do you think it really became a huge problem with cyberbullying, right? Because now you have more access to people and things like that, So yeah, in your opinion, when do you think that became a huge thing?
I think it's always been a huge thing, honestly, ever since I guess the internet has been created, or at least ever since social media apps have been created.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Whether it be like anonymous chatting or you know who the person is type of chatting, that type of media, or just regular social media where you're seeing everyone. Ever since then, it's definitely been a problem. But I would also like to add on that the time where it has really heightened, or that
Mm,
issue has really been brought even more to the forefront, was during the pandemic, or at least during the isolation part of the pandemic, where we was really social distancing, staying at home, like, okay, no one go outside. And something I always say is anyone who inflicts this negative, hateful, harmful rudeness onto other people through the use of digital devices, that is because they feel this false sense of security behind that computer screen, behind that phone screen, behind that tablet screen. So that's where, I mean, I could tell you a statistic. Cyberbullying increased over 70%. It's not just 70, it's over 70% since the start of the pandemic. And actually, I think it has continued to increase because I did a little bit of extra research a couple of months ago specifically about that. And then it said that it reached
mhm.
up to like 76 or something. Don't quote me on that. But
Wow.
it's still just to show you that it continues to rise for some reason. But it's because people feel very empowered behind that screen. And people have so much access to the internet that it turns into, you know what? I just want to hate on people. And often there's times where even people are like, I just do it just because I want to. Like, I just do it
Yeah.
just to feel like doing it and it's not you're just doing it just because you want to. You're doing it because, I mean, it may be out of curiosity and trying to figure out how you can, like, maybe testing how you can hate on others, which is kind of terrifying
Mhm.
to think about. But also, you just know that that's one of the simplest ways to feel powerful. So, I mean, bullying is a power imbalance. So, and then you're doing it through the internet. So that's how. Those are a lot of the different aspects when it comes to cyberbullying specifically.
Okay. Now I do love that you said that. And you said something earlier that I want to touch on because at such a young age, the racial bullying, right? I used to have to deal with it. I dealt with it for a small portion in my life, because one the area that I grew up in, we had the KKK that was still running around, and of course, I grew up in a very poverty-stricken neighborhood. I grew up in the ghetto, right? So we was always taught, hey, don't go over to that side of town over there, or don't go across those tracks over there. And of course, we kids, we go over there anyway, right? But it was the grown-ups that used to always do it to us. Hey, boy, what you doing over? All these old crazy things like that, right? Um, and but in a lot of ways, we were like, oh, if you're going to do this to us, then what I'm saying, we're going to have to handle our business, pretty point blank, right? So now, but well, throughout the course, um, it seemed as if it died down, right? You know what I'm saying? There wasn't a whole lot of racial diversity. We learned how to get along and things like that, and it seemed that throughout the generations, it started to spark again. And things like that. Now, in your opinion, what do you think brought that on?
Um, I think I would say a lot of it can be dealing with the internet. I would also say that like the whole generational aspect. I mean, I know with what you're talking about, or at least more specifically in not my experience, but my dad's experience, his generation. So like
Mm,
similar to yours because you're similar age to him. But where he grew up, he's always saying how, I mean, of course, there's definitely racism. He is a black man. I am a black person. But when it comes to bullying in general, it's like, okay, you would go home and then that would be it. Like you wouldn't have to face your tormentors, which were mainly at school. With
right.
cyberbullying online and the internet now, that's a whole nother thing. So I think there could be
Yes.
a generational aspect to it. This is what this generation is going through. And here's the new form of bullying because this is a whole new generation that has access to the internet and talking to people online and using something that you're supposed to use for good or at the bare minimum to just keep up with each other. Now you're using it
Mm,
to hate on others. So I hope that answered the question because I'm not really sure if I'm necessarily, I think it could also be a generational thing too, because like I am 19, but like specifically when it comes to like where things may have heightened between different generations, I'm not fully sure. I'm more just specifically knowing about my generation and anything that adults that are older than me, more so from your generation, have told me, or specifically my dad. So, but yeah.
no, fair enough. Fair enough. I wasn't sure if your dad had shared some of those things with you because
Oh yeah,
at the
he
age that
definitely.
I am. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the reason why I asked. Maybe you could have filled me in. Maybe I missed something or something like that because I mean, you hit something on the head when you said when the internet came. That's where everything started to go to its height, and then it started peaking, right? So maybe I did miss something. Maybe it was already there. Maybe I was just naive to it and things like that because I've been out of school since the '90s, right? Since the early '90s. So there was, I know, I'm old dude, man. So '92 was the last time I was in school, and so I didn't too much have to deal with that and things like that. And I've been on my own since I was 15 years old. So, and I've been all across the world. Yes, there were some places that I went where where people used to try me for the most part, right? But coming from a background that I came from, it was like, oh, you want to try me? I'll just punch you in the mouth, right? Um, and then but violence never solves anything. But when my son used to go to school, he used to always tell me, because he was biracial, and he used to always tell me about the kids, how they used to call him a mixed ice cream. These are things I've never heard before, right? Yeah, they'll call him a mixed ice cream. Called him what was the called him a beige monkey boy. So they had changed up the verbiage a little bit, right? Like he would have been 15 this year. So this was back when he was around, 5, 6 years old, and everything. And he passed away when he was 8. So I'm saying, from that time, he used to always communicate to me, Dad, this is what they're telling me at school, and he used to always talk about, how there was about 2 or 3, bigger kids that used to pick on the smaller kids. And so I used to always tell them, like, hey, if you ever see that, the biggest thing that you can do, I always taught them how to protect people. Biggest thing that you can do, go stand up between the bully and the kid, because a bully don't like it when people stand up to him. Right. So I always told them, look, you got to protect the people that can't protect themselves, and things like that. So those were the things that I learned from when he was a child, before he passed away. And it really just kind of shocked me, um how much it had changed. And again, maybe I was just naive to it, and things like that, and missed a whole lot of things.
No, 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 no. And I'm sorry for your loss, but no, no, no. I understand where you're coming from because, like, with kids, I mean, kids will say anything. Kids will,
Right,
and on top of that, they're not afraid to say things sometimes. Like
right,
you're
right.
at a certain age when you're a kid, you just kind of look at someone and you just point out something that you really notice about them. That's just like, okay, you look this way, and I really want to point it out because it's so interesting to me. And it's like they kind of like go out of the way to point certain things out. I mean,
Right.
I mean, people have pointed certain kids have pointed certain interesting things out about myself as well. So I kind of see that. But specifically when it comes to actually, also, just one more thing to add on about your son being biracial. I mean, luckily, I've had the privilege and opportunity to speak to a lot of different types of people at my college
Mhm.
campus who have also specifically had a couple who have had the experience of being biracial, and they've told me that they've heard the craziest things as well. And it's almost
Right.
just like people are just trying their hardest to come up with things so that the other person feels degraded and put down and hated on.
Mm.
Like they're
Okay.
going out
Okay.
of the way to do that. And I think that's I think it can be a very psychological thing. I think it can
Mm.
be like, okay, you're already being taught to be hateful. And then on top of that, kids are very naturally creative. So they're mixing that together. And then you get all the slurs or new forms of slurs that you was just
Yeah.
telling me about. And it's just like, when will it end, When will it end? That's why I think it's
That's
so
what.
important to
Yeah.
educate at a young age. That's why I have Devin Speaks Up. That's why I was educating students since I was 14, because they can also relate to someone who is closer in their age. And I'm
Mhm.
19 now, so it's like, okay, I'm at the point where I'm definitely still educating young people, but on top of that, I'm at an age where also adults are very much taking me seriously. They were taking me seriously at the age of 14, but it's like, because I've had so much experience and because I'm now at, I guess, college age level or whatever, they're seeing me where now I'm speaking more at corporate companies, corporate events. I'm speaking in even bigger audiences, national conferences, from
Mhm.
the
Okay.
perspective of someone who is now being taught through their major, psychology major, who has gained 5 years of experience. I think that's a pretty big amount of time, but a lot of people tell me that's not. Anyhow, but basically, so it's like I learned a lot of things so far, and there's still a lot of learning that I do need to gain, not a lot of knowledge that I still need to gain, but I have enough to understand that these are the best ways to prevent bullying. These are the best ways to realize that this in fact is bullying. These are the different types of bullying, types of hate. Here's what you can do to create a call to action and bring back to your school environment or your whatever that environment is to really lessen the amount of hate, lessen the amount of stress overall as well. And
Okay.
also talk about ways to create more of a unified environment and unified world. These are the things that I encompass with Devin Speaks Up, with the Race to Speak Up Against Bullying workshops, and also just overall anytime that I speak about this topic.
Okay. I love that you just said that. And I want to ask, because I'm always curious. I work with a lot of youth around in my community and things like that. And so some of the things that a lot of the things that you're talking about, I heard them mention, right? And sometimes I may not have the best words to give them, right? Because my prevention is, hey, if you can't beat them, pick up something and hit them upside the head. Don't let them bully you around. But of course, I was raised in that way, like, hey, what I'm saying? Don't let people do this to you, right? Um, but I do see the effects that it have on a younger generation, and I see the challenges coming about and things like that. Of course, I do grief work, so I see a lot of the unfortunate after effects, the suicides, the drug use and things like that. So when we talk about the preventative measures, I think about having a safe space for somebody to be able to come and talk, without everybody knowing that this person has came, because what I'm saying, they're like the I can only imagine if they see you going to the principal going, oh, you tattletelling, right? You know what I'm saying? And then somebody's looking at you going, oh, I have to get revenge on you because you wouldn't have told the teachers on me or told the principal and so forth and so forth. Other than that, what are some of the bigger challenges that you see? Um, and what can we do as a whole to be able to provide better spaces for our children to safely want to communicate with us?
I think something specifically that schools need to do is understand that even if your school environment genuinely does not have bullying, it still has
Mhm.
people from different backgrounds. They may be all growing up in the same town, but they still have different experiences. So it is important to have an anti bullying activist, an anti bullying representative come in and speak, especially someone that is closer to the students' ages, as well as give them
Mhm.
workshops. Like a lot of schools, a lot of environments that host children or educate children need to be open to having these conversations, because by the students having those conversations, then you will have those conversations, then the teachers will have those conversations. Those are the types of things that we need. And also, there's a lot of stigmas behind the word bullying, behind the word upstander too, which I'm kind of interested about because I'm always educating students about being an upstander, someone who supports the target of bullying. A lot of people don't actually know what that word means, and a lot of people haven't heard of it. And so when I have heard certain stigmas, by stigmas specifically with upstander, it's just like they are in their own head and kind of like changing the whole understanding of it very, very much. But beyond that, stigmas about bullying, stigmas about snitch culture. I think there is a lot of retraining we need to do. I think there's a lot of just overall needing to make understandings of these words concrete. That's why I think it's so important to have these types of workshops, because, okay, not only are we learning about what it means, but we're also seeing where we all are at in our understandings, in our perspectives and experiences. So that when you are asked about what bullying is, or more specifically, what does it mean to you, you're not going to say, oh, it's just teasing. It's just a one-time thing. No, you're going to say it's repeated. It's meant to cause physical and psychological harm. You're going to say it has a lot of devastating negative effects. These are the types of things we need to understand. And even with snitch culture, what she was talking about before, oh my God, I always hate talking about snitch culture. I will talk about it, but I always hate talking about it because it's just like there's so many things that you could kind of go against what I'm saying with.
No,
But I
no,
do
I'm
love
open
hearing,
to it, man.
no, but I do love always hearing other people's perspectives. But basically, with snitch culture, it's just people need to understand that being a snitch, you need to be able to differentiate between being a snitch and standing up to you for yourself or for your friend and going up to the
Yes,
teacher. And
yes,
and
totally
because it's
agree.
just like if your friend or if you are going through multiple instances of bullying, it's not or what, I guess it depends, but I would not necessarily always say that it's snitching, because snitching is like implying that you're just doing that just to get, like, for the sole purpose of like getting another person annoyed or mad. No, you're doing it you should be doing these things and speaking up to help yourself or help your best friend, help your sister, help your brother, your sibling, help your cousin, help another person in class. Those are the types of things that we need. And so those are the main thing. Oh, and then also another thing I do want to bring up is just overall, everyone needs to be open. Everyone needs to acknowledge the fact that this issue of bullying is in fact an issue. It is a fact a
Mhm.
problem. So once you acknowledge the fact that it is a problem, you'll be taking the first few steps into actually doing something effective about it. Acknowledging that it's a problem, wanting to go into these open and safe spaces to talk about it. What else? Watching video. I mean, I am always posting a video on my social media, or you could just go to my website or YouTube and look up my name and my organization. You will see a lot of me, not only just me talking, but me talking to students or me talking with other anti-bullying activists about this important issue. So there's so many different ways that you can one use the internet for good, but learn about how to effectively do something that puts an end to or lessens bullying that happens not only in your community but overall in the world.
Right. Man, I'm right there with you, and there was a lot I had to learn about snitch culture as well, because when I was coming up, they were like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, or you be considered a snitch. I went to prison. Oh, same thing, right? So nothing really changed. It wasn't until I had my own child, had my son, where I really understood or had a better understanding of what snitching was, and then being protective was, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you said, making sure somebody knows what's going on, because in the world that I've lived in, there was a lot of bad things that people were capable of doing to innocent people, right? So to speak. And that was one thing that I was always big on teaching my son, like, hey, you know what? If you see something, don't go let someone know. Go let someone know what's going on, so you have an adult that do have this knowledge, and let them go and handle it, and things like that. And then um there was an incident where, it's one of those bad incidents where you see the after effects of bullying, and it was a sad situation, and it ended very sadly. The young lady ended up taking her life, and things like that. And I was like, wow, how did it get that bad? To where our children feel as if this is the only course of action, is to remove yourself totally from everything, you know. And so I look at that as a challenge. What are the telltale signs, when a person is really, really getting bullied to that level? Because we know we all have different levels of bullying, right? But I don't think I've ever seen it that bad where the children were doing this.
The signs of bullying, or overall just the signs that something's different, is when something is different within the person that you know, or even within yourself. Is, for example, that person, maybe it's your, for example, if it's your friend who's going through bullying. Okay, we're gonna use this as an example. Say they're the most fun, all rainbows and sunshine, always super upbeat, energetic. And then after a while, and like you've always known them to be that way. Um,
Hmm.
and then you kind of see a shift. You see a shift where it's like, okay, they're slowly isolating themselves a lot more. They're staying in their room. There's times where they don't even go to school. There's times where they just don't even get out of bed. Or maybe they're purposely not checking their phone, because what if it's cyberbullying? They are extremely anxious to the point where they might even have an anxiety disorder. They are just overall having no positive, they have low self-esteem, extremely low self-esteem. Even that, because it also can very much, that emotional, mental can lead to physical disorders. So, excuse me, physical illness. So that could be maybe they have a lot of headaches, or they're starving themselves, purposely starving themselves. These are a lot of the things that it can look like. And yes, it can indicate other things, but it still can definitely indicate that something's wrong. It can indicate that, you know what, you need to help that friend. Even if you're not close, they are still a human being. They are still a human being. So you could help them by saying, you know what, okay, I don't really know what's going on, but I do want to let you know that I'm here for you, Like I'll always be here for you. We're best friends. We're friends, or we may not be friends, but we are classmates. And I though I sit in the back of the room. I literally see everything that happens in front of me. And you have had a very major shift. Like you've completely changed. I don't know what's going on, but I do want you to know that I'm someone that can like support you. Those are the types of responses, but also those are the types of things that people can see. And then also, what about if the person's shy? My younger brother, uh, hopefully he skips over this part when I when he sees this. But my younger brother is very shy. And so it's like when it comes to shy people, well, that's also hard to see with them too. But even then, because what if they are kind of good at kind of like masking things? But
Mhm.
oftentimes humans do still kind of like show, kind of like different, like them being different compared to how they used to be. And of course, we're all humans, so we're going to change, but very different in a negative light. But like that's what it can show as for all types of people. And then there was one more thing I was going to bring up. I'm trying to remember it because I kind of talked a lot about the first thing. Um, oh, also when it comes to that, just I think it's very important to just check up on people, even if you're not suspecting anything, because we are all humans. So we're gonna be going through the stress that life brings us. I mean, I'm a college student that's also an entrepreneur and is flying to different states to give anti-bullying workshops, which is a lot. And then also Devin Speaks Up book readings, which is also a lot. So I'm definitely stressed out, but I love what I do. And the only
Mm.
thing is with college, I mean, of course, I knew it was gonna be stressful because it's college, but this is what I need to do in order to go along the career path that I want to go on. So it's like we all are very stressed out. We all need some form of stress reliever. I love a little bit of yoga, but like we need to kind of like acknowledge the fact that we as humans go through different emotions. We as humans go through different things. So it can be simple as just checking up on someone. So I know I kind of went off on a little bit of a rant, but like,
No, no, you're good, man. I love that you're touching on these things because I'm learning so much, and I want to say thank you, because you're definitely educating me, um, and it's going to make me a better communicator when I do, come across a situation like that. How to notice those telltale signs, how to support the support the children, the younger generation in my communities and things like that. And so I guess my next question is, how do you have the conversation? Like I know in my line of work, I know how to start the conversation around, grief and mental health and, what I'm saying, suicides. I'm trained to understand those things and trained to have those conversations. So, this is just adding more to the arsenal, what I'm saying, to be able to understand. So how does adults, right? Because we live in our own adult world, and sometimes we don't get involved into the younger generation's world because we're like, hey, this is your world, live it. This is your life, right? Um, so how do we start the conversations with our younger peers to open up the doors so we can better understand how to support them and give them the correct resources to maybe curve this.
I think the best way to start is always letting that young person that like is going to continuously be in your environment, but also just in general, always make sure that they know that you are someone that they can easily go to if they are ever going through something that's negative or even something
Mm,
that's positive, because you should be there too for those times too. But always make sure that they know that you are there for them. But while you're making sure of that, prove it to them. Always make sure that they feel comfortable with speaking to you about the good, the bad, the anything. You as an adult should make sure that when you're speaking to your child, make sure that the child is not feeling this sense of, okay, I don't really want to talk to my parent because it's just so annoying how they really can't. It's almost as if they can't understand, or it's almost as
mm,
if they just, because it's like, okay, they don't have the same experience. So it's just hard. Like we may, for example, if it's like coming between, or excuse me, if it's like say a black family, but it's like one of the children is like maybe disabled or something like that, which I always call that of a beautiful ability, not a disability. So if they are of a beautiful ability, but everyone else in their immediate family at least is of a different, or excuse me, has the regular ability. So and the only that one child is of a beautiful ability, it's hard to really relate to your family. So the family needs to make sure that they have open and good conversation. Like communication really goes far because say if it's like a lot of my podcast guests who I've just spoken to or a lot of parents that I've spoken to and they're like my child unfortunately unalived themselves because of bullying and I didn't even know what was going on
Right, right.
and first of all, I'm not saying that I'm blaming the adult. I'm just letting out what only thing that I'm saying is we need to make sure that the family understands how important it is to um have that all open conversations so that the child will say, Mom or dad or parent, I I'm going through something, and even if they don't know how to explain it, let them know that, like, oh, I'm going through something so that the parent is aware and not
Mm,
just like, before it gets to the point where it could lead to an extremely dark path. Open conversation is very vital for all people. And it's not even just families, it's teachers, because I mean, I know with a lot of teachers, they have these big classes and like you can't see everything even when I'm doing my workshops, I can't necessarily see everything. There may be people talking in the back, and I do hear everything. I do hear everything. But it's just like it's hard for me to get to one person's question or one person's comment, and then the other person is saying something. Or it's like I make sure I really have that open conversation so that not only does it work for them, but it also works for my facilitation and my understanding what everyone's saying. So these are the types of things that even teachers need. These are the types of things that all individuals need when it comes to educating others, as well as having that open and safe space. But also, again, it also goes back to educating yourself, making sure you're going out of that way to learn about what it can look like and how we should interact with our students, our young people, our adolescents, how we should interact with our offspring or children. I mean, children by that. Our anyone in our life that is young or younger than us, we need to have that open and safe and brave space. It can help a lot. It can help. Oh, excuse me. It can help a lot, a lot. We
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need, we need to do, even if it's as simple like as that, we need to make sure that we do it because that could, even if it's just like 1%, lessen the amount of hate that goes on or lessen the amount of stress and depression and anxiety and even suicide rates. It could possibly lead to lessening, even if it's just like 1%. It could help.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely love that. And I guess my next question is because I have a stepson who is transgender, right? He is now 24, and we talk about before the transition and things like that, and the things that he was experiencing from other people because of the way that he felt, before the transition. So I often try to hold that conversation. I'm still understanding, I'm still learning, and things like that. But this is my stepson, this is my son's brother, and everything. And so I want to make sure that I'm supporting and understanding the challenges that come forward. Because as a father, as a stepfather, I want to make sure that I am fully in and supportive of him as he grows and into who he is, right? To make sure that those challenges and everything, I want to make sure that I'm open to receiving what he's saying.
Yeah, and thank you so much for asking me that. That's actually, or kind of like just speaking about being LGBT, because a lot of people do. I'm not going to say a lot of people. A couple people in the past have asked me about that, especially since I'm also someone who is LGBT living in a Black
Mhm.
family. I think that a lot of the things that parents of queer, LGBT, transgender, non binary kids, um, should do, or especially I'm going to speak more specifically to being POC and LGBT, or like being in Black families and LGBT, is understand. I would also actually say to do your own research online as well. But since you have me here, I'm going to educate you a little bit. Um,
All right.
when it comes to understanding, there will definitely be things that you really don't understand, and that's completely okay. But just accept. If
Mhm.
your transgender, oh, you said stepson. If your transgender stepson identifies with using he, him pronouns, just accept that. Even if you don't understand it, just accept it and make sure you use he, him pronouns. His chosen name that he identifies with, make sure you use that. Because, I mean, even with my family, I mean, there's certain things that they don't necessarily understand, but they're just like, you know what, I still love you. Like, you're still my child. So, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm going to try my hardest. And even like, I know specifically with my dad's generation, it's really not, I mean, we could have a real conversation about the homophobia within the Black community, but it's just like from my dad's generation, or I guess going back to like you and my dad being the same age. So, like, your guys' generation, um, I've learned from my dad that it definitely has, it's not accepting of the LGBT people, but like going out of your way to say, you know what, I love you. I'm here for my stepson. Making sure to use the correct language. Don't call them a transgender. Just say transgender, my transgender stepson, not a trans, because that's just objectifying people. You know,
Mhm.
going out of the way to make sure that you are there, or saying, you know what, or even to your stepson saying, you know what, there's definitely, I don't understand everything, but I do understand that I love you. I do understand that I'm going to be there whenever you need. I do understand that, you know what, if someone is trying to hate on you for being trans, we're not going to have that. And I'm going to stand up for
Yeah,
you. Even if,
exactly.
those are the types of things that I think a lot of just parents overall need to do. It's just, I know that there's so many things when it comes to retraining people's minds from this negative. And I'm not insinuating that you have a negative mentality when I say this, by the way, but having this negative mentality to having a positive mentality where we can just support everyone, and then also educate our young people so that they can support everyone and continue that positive cycle. So, but
Mhm.
that's a lot of the things that I would say. I hope that did help you. I don't have the
No,
experience of being, yeah, I don't have the personal experience of being a trans man. I'm just like, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm cisgender, but like, I was born male. I had the experience of being a Black man. So it's just like, but I also had the experience of being a queer Black person. So it's like, there's a lot of different things that I definitely understand that as a queer Black person, like the things that I face is definitely different than a cisgendered straight Black person, or just person in
mhm.
general. So I do appreciate you asking me, but I still want to acknowledge that fact that I don't have the experience of being a trans man or a Black trans man. But I do
No,
appreciate you asking me that.
yeah, no worries, man. And I just wanted, it was validation for me because, I am open, regardless. This is my stepson. I love him.
Mhm,
I accept him. I don't care about all the rest of it, right? You know what I'm saying? My love for my stepson is my love for my stepson, and my job is to protect him, right? And we both experienced a huge loss, right? You know what I'm saying? My stepson lost his brother. I lost my son, and things like that. So, there's a connection, and I always wanted to make sure that he was okay, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and things like that. And making sure that I was always supportive of his decisions, and making sure that he always knew that, hey, no matter what, I'm here. I don't care about all the rest of that. And I think it's because of the way that I was raised. Because when I was coming up, my best friend was queer, right? And we grew up together, played football. He was my next door neighbor. And when it came down to it, we all rode bikes. Anybody mess with him, we was on it. We're like, no, you don't get to do that, right? So in a lot of ways, depending on where you grew up at, it wasn't a factor for us, right? Because if you grew up in the right sort of family, right type of family, you was taught that, hey, that person is a human being, right? So you would treat them as such. We wasn't allowed to discriminate or anything like that. No, that person lives in this neighborhood. You would treat them as a human being in this neighborhood. If they need something, you make sure that you're there to help them. So I had learned a lot of things from my best friend coming up. Unfortunately, he was killed when we were 11 years old, and so then from there, I've had a few friends, and the place that I work at now, is we're allies with the LGBTQ community and things like that. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning because I want to learn. I want to make sure that I'm understanding your pronouns and making sure that I'm supporting you in whatever decisions that you decide to make, without judgment. That way, when someone does come and says, "Oh, well," I can look at them and go, no, I'm not, because I am an ally, right? I consider myself a really good ally and protective. I'm very protective of those that I know and care about and things like that. And this, the place that I work at right now, or the office space that I work in right now, I'm an ally to everyone, right? And so I just wanted to make sure that, first and foremost, if I was doing something wrong, I needed to go back in and correct that mentally, right? And what I'm saying, to be able to be more effective in my path and my journey, and in my support and everything. But also, I wanted to make sure that, I wanted to make sure that I am doing the right things by being open to education and receiving the receiving and giving the support also, in
Yeah.
those areas.
Yeah, and there's one more thing I do want to add on, because you really do seem pretty progressive, even with your terminology. I think just as someone who is LGBT or queer, the way that older generations specifically talk, that gives away like whether or not they are understanding of certain things compared to other things, even if they're trying their
Yes.
hardest to understand. It gives it away. So like I can tell that you've been doing the work, like you do understand. And even like, because like I know for a fact it is not a choice to be queer, because it's like I'm already Black. So so it's like I have the experience of being that,
Understand.
because I'm like, do you like, I love myself and I love my identities. It's just, do you actually think I would decide to like go through the experience of being hated on for not one, but two different minority groups? And again, I love being a part of these different minority groups, but it's just like a lot of people who think that it's a decision completely like dismiss the fact that we go through the hate as well for being a part of these different minority groups. So I feel like a lot of people also need to kind of like acknowledge that as well. Cause it's like, and then on top of that, I know specifically when it comes to like, and I'm not speaking because again, I don't have that experience of being trans, but I know when it comes to a lot of transgender individuals and like the healthcare, they're not able to get like the medicine that they may need to transition, or there's a lot of spaces that are really not accepting of that, and they'll just get hate crimes. And even just with being gay in general, like get hate crimes, get these verbal microaggressions or verbal acts of homophobia. So I guess that's the only things I wanted to add on. So I do appreciate you being able to kind of like be vulnerable in that sense.
Well, yeah, because family is family. Like I always told them, family is family. It doesn't matter to me. You're my stepson, and that's just the bottom line to it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what this person thinks or that person thinks. It all that matters. What is it that's going to make you happy, and how can I support you in this? And so when the transition came, I was more accepting of it. His mother wasn't. And so, which actually really surprised me, right? Because the mother's love and things like that. But the mother was one who was more resilient in that aspect, where I was like, no, if this is who you are, then let's go and explore all the options. And then if this is your final decision, okay, let's do it. Let's do the full transition, and we're going to move on from there, right? Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. We still going to be doing the same things that we was doing, going and playing basketball and football and all. We're gonna keep doing these things, right? You know what I'm saying? That's who we are. And so I thank you again for that education. Um, and so now, I'd like to wrap up. Where can people find your book, Devin Speaks Up?
Yeah, of course. So the way that you guys can find my book as well as contact me and see all the information about my workshops and Devin Speaks Up book readings is through my website, which is
Mhm.
racetospeakup.com, or also racetospeakup.com/shop if you want to be brought directly to the Devin Speaks Up book page. Oh, and then
Okay.
also you can
Now,
find my social media because I know you're about to ask that. You can find my social media, which is
I
at
love
Race
it.
to Speak Up on Okay, at Race to Speak Up on Instagram, Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn as well. So really, if you just like, and also on my website, it links to that. And then on those social media platforms, it links to my other social media specifically for all of my author work. And by author work, I just mean everything Devin Speaks Up. So my Devin Speaks Up book readings, all the info about Devin Speaks Up. That's just at author Devin Moore. So it's all connected. It's all connected. It's very easy. As long as you go to my website, you'll see everything.
All right. Then those links will be down below as well. So I'm gonna make sure people have that information. And I always like to wrap up with asking my guests if you had anything that you could tell the audience right now, what would you tell them? What would you leave them with?
I would like to leave you all with just this last saying or this last thing that I actually learned a couple of years ago. So,
Mhm.
if it's hard for you if you want to talk about bullying prevention, or more specifically, if you want to talk about unity, a great way to do that with people who are kind of like against talking about it is through opening up the conversation through using symbolism. So a great way to do that is talking about maybe flowers. So this is something that I genuinely was talking about a couple of weeks ago. But when it comes to flowers, being in this beautiful garden of flowers, very different looking flowers, flowers from different colors, different heights, different smells. Those flowers in that garden represent how we as humans are flowers in the world's garden. So think about
Mhm.
unity in that light. We're all different. We're all, maybe all act different, have different heights, all walk different. We don't all talk the same. You know, we can use symbolism to bring up these conversations and introduce these conversations and then see where we're all at and then go from there and talking about unity and supporting each other.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That's definitely something else to look forward to and learning and expanding my knowledge based on that. And for anyone who's tuning in right now or will be tuning in later, hopefully you guys enjoyed this conversation. Devin, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for having such an amazing conversation, being in depth with everything. Um, really appreciate that, man. Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Thank
for
you.
everyone else, if you guys made it through and you enjoy these conversations, do me a favor. If you haven't already, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, leave us a comment, and share with people that you think that can benefit from these conversations. But also, do me a huge favor: go over and check out Devin's channel and learn more so we can support better. We can better support our children and the generations out there um, to be more open to having these conversations, because at the end of the day we have to keep our children safe. And so this is Tony. I'm signing off. Until next time, you guys keep your heads up and peace.